Okay, Hamlet, week 2. And really, this is a continuation of your figurative language analyses from last week, which I am so enjoying as they're still coming in. And I'll give you feedback towards those because I think it will help you with your timed right revisions. We are always trying to fill in the space of what we can't quite understand. And one of the ways that we do that is through poetic figurative language. And Shakespeare's character of Hamlet is so in touch with this struggle. He is constantly seeking to explain what he cannot quite understand, though he has a brilliant mind. It is not that he cannot understand it because of the limits of his intelligence. It is that there is so much in the human experience that cannot quite be fully understood. Enter symbols. So symbols are in the 5th strand, and we've not yet done them. We've covered every strand but 5C and 3B, if you care to notice, which we'll cover in a few weeks. What are symbols? Identify them and explain their function. This is connected to 5A, which is just distinguished between literal and figurative meanings of words. And that is indeed what a symbol is, both literal something that stands in for something figurative. I have a couple of knowledge pieces here. First, a symbol can have its own literal meaning, but depending on the context, it can take on figurative meaning. And then some symbols have become so common that they become archetypes. So one famous example is coming up. It is the scene of Shakespeare's Hamlet holding the skull of Yorick. Not only is that a symbol of Shakespeare, it's become a stand-in for Shakespeare and his body of work. It's a larger symbol in the human experience, a skull, as representative of, sure, a human body, literal, but figuratively, all of our questions about human existence. Such a common symbol that it is archetypal across universe, across time and space, across culture. The human skull is something that represents common themes to all of us. So we're going to think about this, and we're going to get more pixelated. I'd like you this week in your creative analysis tasks, 2 tasks, to think about symbols in Hamlet as demonstrating some illustrative meaning from the entire work. And, of course, why that matters in the world. Always why that matters. And that will bring me into a little diversion, a little tangent on symbols in general. So we are to identify and explain the function of a symbol. That's our task this week. I have experienced in my years as an English teacher a bit of resistance sometimes, not necessarily saying that from you wonderful students, and I am excited to see what you have to say about symbol. But in my experience, this is where students can sometimes start saying things like, okay, the symbol of the green light stands for Gatsby's desire for wealth and the possession of Daisy, blah, blah, blah. The author put it there to make us think harder. Symbols are, if done well, not artificial. They're not Easter eggs that an author puts in to try to demonstrate something about their own intelligence or to make it more esoteric or make it more difficult to access or just sort of catch you and see if you noticed it in the corner of the frame, kind of like those highlights magazines where you had to find the hidden pictures, like symbols, right, as artificial add-ons. A good symbol is so authentic to the work, it is just part of the landscape of the character. Put simply, well-written characters will necessarily use symbols because our human lives are so rich with authentic symbols that we navigate a world full of them. A work devoid of symbols is simply not human enough. It doesn't demonstrate the way that we move with artifacts in our lives in order to have good lives. And I'm going to give you a really personal example, but it's the one I give to students. In my life, I had a serious relationship before the relationship with my now husband. And that relationship ended, obviously, but here's my symbol. For a present for this person, I gave him concert tickets to a person that he wanted to see, a singer he really wanted to see. And he was really excited about it. And we were planning our event to go to this concert. But the day before the concert, he called me and said, would it be okay with you if instead of going with me, you didn't come, but my other friend who really wants to see this same artist came? So could you stay at home and I'm going to give your ticket to my buddy? Okay, symbol, concert tickets. I didn't put the concert tickets in my life as a symbol. They were just part of my life. And they became symbolic of this lack of commitment, a sort of lack of connection with this person. I find them interesting as a symbol because when I met my husband and we started dating, a week into our relationship, he got me concert tickets to my favorite artist. And the concert was 6 months from then. And so there very quickly became this mirror symbolic image of concert tickets, but now as a testament to his commitment to me, his seeing into the future with me, and his desire to make me happy with this person that I want, this concert I wanted to go to. So if somebody were to look at the story of my life, they might go, concert tickets. Okay, the author put them there to show commitment. But that's not right. The concert tickets were always there. They were just a part of me living. And that's true for you. When you think about the symbols in your life, they're organic. They are beautifully so. They're just a part of the landscape of living. Good authors do that too. There's no adding on later. They're just writing these really rich, real lives. And because they are, there's going to be symbols. So that's Hamlet. And that's all of us. One of the most amazing things about Hamlet is just how well drawn he is. He's so real, he pops off the page. You might not like him, but you can't ignore the complexity of his living. He seems to have been real. And so, of course, he will have symbols. Here's the one that I used in my example. Some symbols are so common that they become archetypes. This skull of Yorick and what that means for Hamlet. Here, portrayed by Kenneth Branagh, a really famous acting. So there's one, but this is perhaps the most obvious one. This week, let's think about all of the others. You're going to have 2 tasks for your creative analysis this week. The other assignments are light, and I really want to dive into symbol. We're going to go 2 directions. One direction is you finding a symbol that's in the play and explaining it, and the other direction is going to be directing, imagining the stage. How would you depict a scene with a symbol in the very way that this production decided to have Kenneth holding the skull just so? All right, so here is my model of that. First, why Hamlet is a sensitive character. He's attuned to the power of metaphor, like last week's creative analysis, and symbols in the course of our human lives. And so for creative analysis, let's explore what happens in the play through the use of symbols. Here's one, the language of flowers. I'll start describing it and start thinking, where did that happen in the play? So this is an image of the language of flowers, which is an actual term that describes a phenomenon that swept through the continent, but really has been around for all of human history. It just became really popular in Victorian era England. We see Ophelia giving flowers. This is not an accident. Ophelia, by this point in the play, has begun to lose her mind. She's had a break with reality, and so she's dancing around, carrying flowers. Why? Why would somebody who has lost trust in everybody in her life suddenly turn to flowers? And that's the question that inspires me as I think about this model. So here's what she says. This is straight from Act 4, Scene 5. It's the last words of her life as she walks around the stage giving flowers to the other characters. You can pause to remind yourself of this scene. She names a number of different flowers, and I wonder why. What's the symbol mean? This is back to Floriography, which is literally the arrangement, or the language of flowers, the arrangement of flowers to send messages to the recipient, using the embedded symbolic meanings of each flower, plant, herb. Rosemary for remembrance, rue for bitterness. So in many ways, I think this is Shakespeare. He is giving us the language of flowers. He's sending us messages, perhaps cryptic sometimes, to us, his recipients, through his symbols. Ophelia gives these out, but we don't know exactly who she's giving them to. And so Shakespeare really allows our imaginations to go, or the stage directions to go, according to where we want to see those flowers handed. Does she hand the rue to Gertrude for bitterness? Who does she give the rosemary to? Her brother? These questions drive the play's action when it's on stage being produced for you. But in the literary sense, they drive her character and the characters on stage with her. What do they mean for Ophelia? And how much of it is she aware of? That gets me thinking, what else goes on with flowers? She gives these floral gifts out, and then she dies. She goes to the creek where she drowns, and she's on the bough above it. And it says there in the language, down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. And so those weedy trophies are actually part of her death. When they die, she dies. There's something really powerful happening with these flowers. I'm wondering what that is. Literally, they're a collection, beautiful and sweet-smelling thing that gives her comfort. And then figuratively, they're full of meaning. They represent bitterness of her broken mind, the last days where she has lost all these relationships because people have deserted her, the memory of her pure life maybe before that disintegration, the joy that she had with her brother, and even Hamlet, before she was used as a tool for other people's motives. All of this is wrapped up in her character, but also making a point about Shakespeare's concept of madness. So many of the characters in Shakespeare in general, but especially in Hamlet, have madness, but in that madness, the greatest truths and pieces of wisdom and discernment. And so what is he trying to tell us about the human mind? Ophelia has lost her grip on reality, but has she? It seems like that itself is a fantastical whim, that we can control reality. I say here, sort of an extraordinary claim, none of us knows exactly where we stand in this world. None of us knows completely everything. And the quote-unquote mad ones are maybe sane enough to acknowledge that uncertain reality, rather than cope with that truth with willful ignorance or coping strategies, self-comfort. And that's Hamlet's dilemma. He can see both sides. He can live in the space where nothing makes sense, and he cannot will it to. But he also can, on the other side, feign madness. So Shakespeare seems to be telling us something about the very nature of reality, reasonability. Can it really be had? All right, so the flowers are really representative of these larger swirling truths about the things that seem to be crazy, but on their actual core, or at their actual core, they have more truth to them than anything else. So what does that tell us about truth? So this is your task. There's two. Find a symbol. It doesn't have to be about madness. There's so many themes in the play that you could talk about. Find a symbol that you think is really compelling as it relates to the quote-unquote meaning of the work as a whole. That's the AP language, right? What is it? Where is it? And then what do you think it means? What is the symbol standing in for? Paragraph or so where you're analyzing it. And then a separate strand, a separate discussion thread. I want you to imagine that to be or not to be speech that will be the subject of our revisions, your essays that you wrote. If you were directing the play, what symbol would you use in that scene? There is none that are indicated, and so you could choose anything. What's a symbol that you see fitting in to that moment where Hamlet is waxing philosophical about these really amazing truths? What would he be holding or wearing or looking at? Anything you decide. Okay, looking forward to it.